Good morning, Grace.
Good morning.
I'm
Hey,
trying
good
to give you
morning.
slide capabilities, but I'm not able to do so.
Huh.
Um, your
I mean,
do
worst comes
you?
to worst, I can just say next. I don't think.
Yeah, right. Um, I just like for people to have control of their own slides.
Oh, yeah. That's definitely easiest, but
Are you in on the app or the web version?
the web version, I can try coming back in on the app.
Elise,
I,
are you in on the app?
I am on the web. Are you talking about Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm on my computer.
I'm on,
Yeah,
well,
but yeah, go
sorry.
ahead, Nat.
it's like, like you can join from the web page or you can join from the application of Zoom on your
Mm-hmm.
computer. Did you
Mm-hmm.
join from the Zoom application?
Yes.
So did I.
Okay.
Okay. Do
Okay,
you
so I
want me
think
to
that's what it is,
try?
Grace. Yeah, try to come in through the app.
Okay. I'm not 100%. I have the app on my computer because it's my
Okay.
work computer, but I'm going to try. It would be
Okay.
weird if I didn't, but I just don't know. All right.
Okay, no worries.
All right. I'll be right back.
Okay. Let me go back. Oops.
Hey, Narissa, real quick, I'm gonna forward that individual who wanted to sign up last minute
Okay.
the link to today's
Mhm.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Did they reach out directly to Kelly just to let them know that they were not able to register but would like to receive
Yes,
the recording? Okay, awesome.
please. And I'm just trying to see if we can, do they still want to attend?
Yeah, I believe so.
Because we could just send them this Zoom link. Give me a
Yeah,
sec.
I'm just forwarding it to my team member who received the email from this person.
Okay. Oh, so you did send them the Zoom link?
Yeah.
Okay. Let me let Grace back in. All right. Let's see.
All right, no dice. I
Oh,
am still. That is so weird.
okay.
I apologize. I had no idea we did not actually have an app.
It's okay. I'll just go through your slide. Just say next, or
Okay.
some people want me to guess when they want to move on, and
I
it's
mean,
nerve-wracking.
yeah, no, I can just tell you next. Don't even
Yes,
worry
please.
about it.
Thank
It's not a
you.
big deal.
Kelly's hopping on in a few, and we'll just make sure the video transition is smooth before we start.
Perfect.
Okay.
Quick question. When I finish my slides, do you want me to introduce the video or do you guys want to jump in and do it?
Um, I think you can go ahead and just introduce the video, and then we'll just to
Okay.
keep it smooth, if you don't
Yeah.
mind.
Oh, no, I'm happy to.
Okay.
Also, Nat, for while we're on the topic of introductions, would you mind just introducing Grace?
After my presentation?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. So how many registrants do we have, Narissa?
40, 42.
Nice. Nice.
Mm-hmm.
Plus that other one who tried signing up this morning.
Yep.
The agenda, Elise, for
Mhm.
my section, it says I'm doing my brownfield basics and then what due diligence looks like. Am I supposed to talk about due diligence a little bit, or should I just segue to the
No,
exam?
yeah. You
Okay.
can just segue into Grace. Did you add the gardening graphic?
With the guy and the steps.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just the end. Yeah, after that,
Okay,
I'll keep
awesome. So
going.
in that case, you can just say, due diligence is the assessment and investigation steps in this
Mhm.
graphic. And that's a great segue for Grace's presentation. I think are Grace's slides before Nat's. Grace, great picture.
It was a good
Yeah.
picture. Let me see.
It's the first time I've ever liked a firm photo that I've had. I just wish I could figure out how to make it work for LinkedIn because my picture's so old on LinkedIn. I don't look like that at all anymore.
Yeah, I think we're missing both Nat slides and my slides.
Hold on, I may have what's going on? Give me a sec.
Yeah, no problem. Good morning, Kelly.
Set up. So I am in the open office. So if you hear any audio background during
That's
my part
okay.
of the presentation, let me know.
Zoom's pretty good at, I think, getting rid of some of that background noise, which is really nice.
Well, it's still early, so
Yeah,
the
right,
action
right.
hasn't started yet.
Yep.
You should have like those red lights by your little section, like on air when they had it in
Yeah.
the radio. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, that would be.
Nat, we should get an on-air sign for the office. It's brilliant.
Yeah, but we wouldn't really need it, I don't think.
You don't think anyone will be walking into our
No, I think we're
office?
pretty secluded.
Yeah,
It's
that's
just the
fair.
neighbors.
Hmm.
Hey, Elise and Natalie,
Yeah.
I apologize. So the email that you all sent us yesterday with the slides, that went
Hmm.
to our junk folders. So
Oh
that,
no.
yeah, and we just now figured that out. I'm wondering though, would it be easier if you all just, when we got to that part of the presentation, for you all to just share from your end? Because I think we're having a little trouble access. That may be why it went to our junk folders. I know before
Oh,
you've sent links and they haven't been an issue, but it seems like we're having trouble. accessing the
Yeah,
links.
that's so weird. Yeah, I don't think that should be a problem, Nat. Is that okay on your end? Are you able to pull yours up and then I can pull mine up or?
Can you, because I have notes and I don't want to
Yeah.
share my notes on the screen.
Uh-huh.
At least could you share my presentation and
Yeah,
I just,
yeah, for sure.
yeah.
I'll pull both of them up right now and just make sure. If Narissa could share the slides and we'll just practice doing that transition of me
Mm.
jumping in.
Also, at least when I'm
Yeah.
ready to go, I'll just like go like this when I want you to change the slide. Is that okay?
Okay. Yeah. I might be able to give you slide access as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I might not see your video if we're sharing the slides. So I might just need you to give me the verbal, like, go ahead,
Okay.
next slide. Let me pull this up. Okay. All right. And Kelly, actually, what's the end of your slides? Just so I can
Oh,
make
let me go
sure.
through.
Thank you.
Okay, so that's the end.
Awesome. And then I'm going
I
to,
think you're on mute, Kelly.
Thank you.
Hmm.
If it helps, at least we can drop in real quick just a transition slide that looks like it's with our kind of like what we have after the for the video that would
I
just
think
sort of prompt.
if you want to, otherwise
Transition.
I think I'm fine. I'll just remember the yellow what's next sign is
Yeah.
our transition. And then I
Okay.
think I can smoothly transition it. Did that work?
It's loading. Okay, there I am. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I can give you
Yes. Let me
slide
see.
control.
Yay. Okay.
Nice. Awesome.
And then after my presentation ends, I'm gonna give Grace her little segue. Is there something I need to click, or do you just need to
No.
stop sharing?
Yeah, so stay on that garden
Mm,
slide. Um, Here, let me go back to, don't go past the garden slide and then just give that transition to Grace and Narissa will replace the slide share with hers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then I'll do the same thing for, I know I just have like 5 slides at the end after the panel discussion. So I'll do the same thing then.
This is a great graphic, guys. I really like it.
All thanks to our content creator. We are very blessed to have him on our team. And he's actually the one who did the Town of Spencer video as well. So
Oh, that
he's
is excellent.
Yeah,
he's
Chris
taking
Parks.
so yeah, Chris Parks. He's taking some content and making it way better for, audiences than I think we could have.
You guys always have
Yeah,
the
no, that's
best graphics
awesome.
and images.
Yeah, we're lucky. Yeah, I keep referring to the guy in the gardening graphic as Chris. I don't think many people know that that's the name of our content creator, but I call him Farmer Chris. So little Easter egg in there for you.
Real quick, what's the title of the video? I just want to make sure I introduce it correctly. Or should
You
I just
want to
say Town of Spencer video and I'll say something nice?
you
Town
want
of
to try that
Spencer
right now?
success story. Is that correct?
Let me pull that up for you.
I I have it pulled up, so if we want to do that,
Oh,
practice that
awesome.
transition right now, we can do that.
Yeah, Narissa, if you
Yeah.
want to replace my slides with yours for Grace's presentation.
Wait, are you not seeing my slides right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, you are?
I
You
think
have
I
to
can
stop
stop
sharing
sharing.
if you're You have to
Ah,
stop
okay.
sharing, Elise, or you
Got it.
won't know that. Yeah,
All right.
unless you have three screens.
I was gonna say if someone could let me know when it's
I
Grace's
really
slide
think we
again.
should drop the slides. I know it's late, but in my opinion, it's a little clunky, and we should just drop the slides in if we can.
Do you need me to resend them to you?
I can't access them at all. Kelly, can you access
Yeah,
them at all?
that's the only thing. I think we're
Um,
okay,
Okay.
Narissa. I think we're okay. I think it's going to be harder to try to get them to us and get them in than I think we'll make the transition work. If not, people are, they understand it's technology. It's everybody's
Okay.
for the webinars. Blah, blah, blah. But yeah, if we want to just go to the point where we're going to begin the video.
Okay. Kelly, can you navigate slides?
I'm sorry.
Can you navigate the slides? Oh, let me give you,
I
so
don't.
you can go to exactly where the video starts. You should be able to do it now.
So this is the transition slide we get
Okay.
here.
Okay.
And this is where I will start sharing. So Narissa, you'll continue to share
Mm-hmm.
until I.
Steve, is Peter able to make it today?
Yes, he's here and he's
Awesome.
working on a project, so he'll tune in
Yeah,
shortly.
no
Yep, he's,
problem.
I just let him in.
Oh, awesome. What timing? Hey, Grace, when you announced this video, would you be able to throw in NJIT Tab's name on it? Just because Chris worked so hard on putting this together and he's very proud of it.
Do you want us to put the y'all's logo on the slide screen, the transition slide?
If you want to, I know it's really soon to the start of the event, so up to you. But even if Grace just threw in, this is NJIT Tab's video on Town of Spencer's success with communication and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah, I was
you.
gonna say something on like, and next we will see a video prepared by NGIT Tab about the town of Spencer's brownfield experience. And as part of this, they did a very excellent job communicating with stakeholders and gathering input, which, among many things, is part of why I think it was so successful. So
Yeah.
please enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you.
Something like that.
I'm so excited. It's like a little movie day.
I just want to make sure you guys can hear the audio.
Yep, can hear it. The audio is great. Kelly, in the more, there's like the three dots on the Zoom toolbar and more. Is there a click for optimize and sorry for Zoom, not for YouTube? Is there an optimized video sharing option?
There it is.
That might help with making it a little less
Jumpy.
yeah, thank you.
Is that
Spencer, North Carolina, we are a town of about 35.
Is that better?
A little bit, yeah. Let me see if I can shoot a message. Because I know my team has walked me through this before with just making the video a little less jumpy. And then, Kelly, we can also see your Zoom boxes in the screen as well. So I think it's maybe the video and then the little toolbar at the top.
So you can see that.
You
You
can
can
still
see the
see it.
zoom
It's
control.
really not in the way too much. It's just kind of blocking the title and a little bit of the top.
You can see the zoom controls.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see the controls. I see a blank spot.
Yeah, I think that is the controls for her, but we just see the blank kind of boxes.
Did Chris respond to you, Elise, or whoever you contacted?
Um, they're typing right now.
Okay.
Can you see them now? The
Yeah,
controls.
we could see it's better. It's better. There's a
Yeah,
little tiny black box on the left, but it's really small. It's good.
and it's
Really?
not covering the video or anything.
Yeah.
Okay, I've never had that issue before, so I'm not sure.
I've seen it happen. It's okay. I don't really know what it is.
I have content only selected, so I don't.
Yep.
Okay, well, I'll stop sharing for now.
And everyone can see the screen, my screen.
Yep.
hmm
Okay, just so you know that I'm going to keep sharing, but I can't hear or see the video when I do that. But I think it'll be a smoother transition if I keep sharing. So we'll just have to,
Got it.
Kelly, I'll just listen along, I guess.
hmm
Hmm.
Hey guys, I'm gonna run grab a drink real quick. I'm just gonna leave myself a part of the Zoom, but I won't be here for a minute or two. So
Sounds
I'll be right back.
good. Hey, Kelly.
You figured it out, Elise?
Yeah, I think if Kelly, I don't know if she had her camera on when she was playing the video, but apparently that may take up
hmm
some bandwidth, so that may help make it a little less jumpy.
I think she heard.
I'm sorry, I missed something. Did I miss something?
Yeah, it was just my team got back to me. If Kelly is able to turn off her video when she shows the or shares the Town of Spencer video, it may
Yeah.
help make it a little less jumpy.
Okay. You want to try it, Kelly? Or are you good? It's 10 o'clock.
Yeah,
Oh
it's
yeah.
better. That's so much better.
Okay.
Yeah, that I think made a difference.
That was better.
Yep.
Yeah.
100.
Should I turn on?
I'll let people in at 10 o'clock, okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Looks like we still have a few folks who are joining us and getting connected. Well, happy Friday Eve. We're almost to the weekend, so good for that. But we appreciate you all joining us this morning for our webinar, Mastering Due Diligence in Brownfields Redevelopment. This webinar is actually a partnership with the New Jersey Institute of Technology's Technical Assistance to Brownfield Communities and partnership between them and Centralina Regional Council. My name is Kelly Weston. I am the Strategic Engagement and Technical Services Manager at Centralina. I'm also the Program Manager for our Regional Brownfields program. And looks like we still have a few folks getting connected, but we're going to jump right in because we do have a lot that we want to cover today, and we want to make sure that we have plenty of time also for you all to get in any questions that you might have. So here's our agenda for today. We're going to do a little bit of an overview of the Centralina's Regional Brownfields program. Then we're going to turn it over to our friends at NJIT for some basics of brownfields. We're also going to hear from Womble Carlisle Dickinson on why due diligence matters. And then we're actually going to have an opportunity to view a video that NJIT in the town of Spencer put together on a project that Spencer has done, their brownfields project. And we're also then going to go into a roundtable discussion and have an opportunity for you all to ask our guests some questions. And then we're going to close out with an overview of NJIT's outreach and communication assistance that they offer along the lines of brownfields. So we do want to just take a moment to thank our partners for their participation in this webinar today. Again, we mentioned NJIT. This is a partnership with them. Also, the town of Spencer and Womble, Bond, and Dickinson. You'll hear from their representatives a little bit later, so we'll have a chance to meet them and hear more from them. So first, just a little bit about Centralina and our Brownfields program. So we know a number of you who are on today are familiar with Centralina Regional Council, but for those who aren't, we are the Council of Governments that serves the 9-county Greater Charlotte region. We serve the counties within that region as well as about 70 or so municipalities within those counties. We actually, because we're a fast-growing region, brownfields is something that is very important to us. And so we applied for a brownfields grant a few years ago, really to address some of the challenges that we're seeing, specifically around mobility and housing. And so currently about 50% of our region lives in one county and works in another. And of course, as you can imagine, along with that, housing and transportation costs are a significant portion of their household expenditures. Also, as in other communities and regions, health and safety is a concern. So wanting to make sure that our region has clean water and soil, but also being sensitive to sensitive populations. And of course, the economy. So brownfields properties, abandoned sites tend to create blight. And because of the outward growth that we're seeing, having those is not efficient. So redevelopment does allow some opportunities to address those challenges. It creates new local jobs. It adds to our housing stock. It also helps to turn healthy and safety liabilities into community assets. And really, it also helps to increase property values, support our tax base, and really support the efficient use of land around the region. So that is really why we applied for this Brownfields grant from the EPA. We were awarded that in 2024. It was $1.5 million Community Assessment Coalition grant. And what that allows us to do is to assist communities in transforming brownfields into new uses that will support our local as well as regional economy. And so really the objectives that we are seeking to fulfill through this grant are to assess some potential sites, and we'll hear about those in just a moment, do some cleanup planning as well as some reuse planning for how those sites can be redeveloped, and then also conduct any community engagement activities that will help to identify those reuses. So again, our partners in the Brownfields program are the EPA, so the funding agency that provided the grant, as well as NJIT, who is assisting us with programming. And then Stantec is our consultant, who is our engineering consultant, who is really doing the technical work and the assessments as part of this grant. So we like to think of our program in sort of three buckets. The first would be the site strategy and engagement facilitation. So that's really identifying, prioritizing, and the actual assessment work of brownfield sites. And then I mentioned like the cleanup plans and the reuse plans that we would be developing, and those community engagement and stakeholder activities, engagement activities. The second bucket would be education and technical training. So this would be an example of that, delivering workshops and peer learning opportunities, and also developing some informational resources as well. And then lastly would be grant and funding guidance. So being able to assist other communities in applying for grants by advising them on funding sources and supporting their grant applications, for example, through letters of support. So when we applied for the Brownfields grant, there were three partners that we had identified as part of our coalition. And within those communities, there were sites that we identified as initial target sites. So those partners were the town of Spencer, the city of Mount Holly, and the city of Albemarle. And so we have been working with those communities on identifying some opportunities and have some examples of work that we're doing. And so this was actually not one of our initial sites, but it is one that has since come up that we are working on assessing. And that is the city of High Shoals. And there was a property there, it was privately owned. It was actually a former ironworks and textile manufacturing facility located along the Catawba River. You can see some images there. Had some overgrown rubble, trash, a lot of kudzu on the site. And the city of High Shoals had actually started the brownfields process with that property several years back. And so we were able to come in and work with the city on doing a phase one assessment that was actually recently completed. And we're now in the process of preparing for a phase two assessment. So we were really pleased that we were able to get some progress going on that site. Next, and this is actually one that was part of our coalition initially, was the city of Albemarle's Wiscasset Mill. Now, this was actually a property that is owned by the city. It was actually a former textile manufacturing facility located in a floodplain, so there were some concerns there, but also wanting to make sure that there was protection of the wetlands around the property. One of the hazard-related concerns was a 20-gallon underground storage tanks. Those had been filled, but again, as part of the assessment process, wanting to look into those. So we did complete a phase one assessment, and we're also preparing for a phase two on that property as well. And then lastly, and you'll hear more about this one later on, this is the NC Finishing Company in the town of Spencer. It is privately owned. It was a former fabric dyeing and finishing plant. It's located along the Yadkin River, and it has had some on-site waste treatment that was identified at the property. I don't want to give too much away to steal their thunder, so just kind of a little bit of a teaser of what you'll hear a little bit later on this site. But we're very excited about this one as well. So really helping to drive the work of the Centralina Regional Brownfields Program is our Regional Advisory Committee. And so we launched this committee earlier this year. It's comprised of representatives from local government, nonprofit, and the development community. And so they are using their expertise to provide our program with guidance by reviewing and prioritizing sites for environmental assessment activities, really championing brownfields development as a tool for helping to redevelop and revitalize communities and provide some opportunities for community and economic development, and addressing some issues like public health, public safety. Those are things that we're concerned about and wanting to focus on. And then lastly, really strengthening the connections amongst the partners within our region to help build a network of folks who are interested in brownfields redevelopment and supporting that region-wide. So we're really happy to be able to work with them. I know a few of them are on our call today, so really value the expertise that they bring to this program. So in terms of what we have coming for the Centralina Regional Brownfields program, we are going to be continuing to conduct phase 1 and phase 2 assessments. We're also focused on prioritizing additional sites for assessment. So looking for opportunities within our region for potential projects that we can move into that next, that assessment stage. And then also building our site inventory. We have a number of sites that we identified through when we applied for our grant. And so wanting to add to that inventory so that we can have a good pipeline of sites to move into assessment and eventually reuse and planning. And then we're also going to be planning some additional learning opportunities such as this webinar and others as well. And so we welcome any feedback on topics that might be of interest that we can help to offer some opportunities to do a deep dive on. I've got my contact information there at the bottom. Again, my name is Kelly Weston. I'm the program manager for Centralina's Brownfields program. I'm happy to answer any questions that anyone might have about our program specifically, or just being an EPA grant recipient. But yes, I again thank everybody for joining us today and look forward to having an opportunity to engage with you all. So with that, I will turn it over to Elise from NJIT.
Thank you, Kelly. Elise will be sharing it, but I will be presenting. I'm Natalie Francesco. I'm a Brownfield Redevelopment Specialist for NJIT TAB. And right now we're going to go over some Brownfield basics, definitions of what Brownfields are and how they affect your community, just so everybody knows that the webinar is being recorded. So if there's anything you miss, Centralina will send you this recording after the webinar, and it will be posted on their resources. To start, we should go over some definitions. Some brownfield sites are really easy to identify, such as abandoned factories, closed gas stations, or boarded up dry cleaners, while other sites are not so easy to identify as brownfields, like vacant lots, so we need to rely on research of historical sources or property data. From the EPA, a brownfield is real property, the expansion, redevelopment, or reuse of that can be complicated by the presence or potential presence of a hazardous substance, pollutant, or contaminant. The line of potential presence of a hazardous substance is really important because sometimes we don't know if a site is contaminated. The potential presence can help define that site as a brownfield. According to North Carolina Department of Environmental Quality, that organization defines a brownfield as an abandoned, idled, or underused property where the threat of environmental contamination has hindered its redevelopment. To understand what a brownfield is, we also need to understand where they come from. We need to jump back in time through the 17 and 1900s and discuss the Industrial Revolution. Cities and small towns throughout the U.S. contributed to industrial productivity. There are plenty of sites around the country that served as factories, mills, and manufacturing facilities, including Cannon Mills in Kannapolis, North Carolina. On the right is a photo of housing where workers resided, and on the left is the primary facility when the mill was open and operating. With operating facility like textile mills, chemical manufacturing, and machinery shops, this requires large amounts of chemicals and petroleum products to be used. Although these businesses helped the American economy, it came with a price, environmental degradation. When goods were being transported, chemicals spilled from drains. Sometimes drums of chemicals were knocked over in factories and spilled to floor drains, which often discharged into the ground. During this time period, there were little to no environmental regulations. To dispose of industrial waste, many companies polluted into local rivers, waterways, or buried drums of chemicals underground. Some places even dug out land to create man-made ponds just to hold their chemical waste. This unregulated practice of waste disposal and uncontrolled spills continued until the first environmental laws came about in the 1960s. With the new trend of environmental regulation and other factors, industries moved out of the U.S. and some industries became obsolete, leaving behind not just the industrial site or business, but all of their contaminated soil and water. Brownfields, however, aren't just older factories. Non-industrial brownfield sites can include closed gas stations and auto repair shops, former dry cleaners, and other vacant commercial properties and dump sites. We consider these smaller vacant businesses as brownfields because they handle chemicals. Sometimes, if the building itself contains asbestos or lead paint, those physical building materials can cause the site to be considered a brownfield as well. Now, I mentioned earlier how businesses that leave also leave behind their contamination. This is especially hard on the community that lives near these sites because contamination in the environment is complex, difficult to clean up, and can cause exposure risks to people or the environment. That's why looking into a site's history is really important. Understanding a site history can tell us what type of contamination might be present, where the contamination might be, and how the site is impacted. On the screen are a few headlines of crimes occurring at brownfield sites. Unfortunately, abandoned and neglected sites attract vandalism, arson, drug trafficking, and dumping. Simultaneously, the physical degradation of soil, water, and air quality can potentially cause public health issues for the residents living nearby. On an economic level, brownfields contribute to low property values for surrounding properties. Mass amounts of abandoned homes or sites is a loss of tax revenue for that community, generally limiting growth like employment opportunities. Even though those negatives are strong, brownfields do come with advantages. Many brownfield sites are located along waterways, rail lines, central roadways, interstates, as well as within central downtown areas, making their locations opportunistic and advantageous for redevelopment. Many already have existing infrastructure, like utility and sewer lines, or they hold historical and architectural significance to that community, giving the building purpose. With these positives, brownfields are sites sitting with potential to be transformed into a community asset. Addressing brownfield sites improves the environmental quality of that land because we get to remove pollution during cleanup. If your community suffers from flooding, storms, or other environmental events, a brownfield can be redeveloped to deal with issues such as persistent flooding. By creating land uses that store floodwater, such as rain gardens, multi-use fields, and other forms of green stormwater infrastructure. Redeveloping brownfield sites can improve a community's economic conditions by catalyzing economic development, creating jobs, increasing tax revenue, and diversing the local economic base. Lastly, redeveloping brownfield sites helps to improve the quality of life for the community living near these sites. Brownfield redevelopment removes health and safety hazards, eyesores, and improves community appearances. By transforming these properties into community-needed uses like affordable housing, recreation, schools, healthcare facilities, the change in scenery and public use can alleviate community fears and worries. Redeveloped brownfields are key ingredients to creating economically, environmentally welcoming communities. However, the process of cleaning up and redeveloping contaminated properties can be a daunting task, especially for local governments and nonprofits. At the minimum, this process includes determining the presence of contaminants in the soil, water, and air, and in building materials, understanding the state's regulatory process, identifying and navigating funding and financing options, engaging the community, hiring and managing consultants and contractors, and overseeing the redevelopment activities or marketing the properties of real estate developers. How do we approach a brownfield site and make it safe and ready for redevelopment? Your project has 4 main steps, and it's highlighted on this graphic. The first is planning the foundational stage where you can align reuse vision, strategize funding opportunities, shore up partnerships, and make a plan to involve the community. The second step would be to go and find out through environmental assessments if your site is contaminated and apply for funding to help get this assessment done. If remediation is needed, apply for funding to physically clean up your site. Then at the fourth step, you are ready for redevelopment and your vision can come to life. Due diligence are the assessment steps of the graphic shown. And that's what Grace Hearn, our attorney here today, is going to explain, specifically what due diligence is and why it is important. Grace, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the introduction. Hi, everybody. My name is Grace Hearn, and it's true, I am an attorney. Please don't hold it against me. And I'm so excited to speak to you guys today. I love brownfields, and part of that is because of just the raw benefit to the community and how much that benefit, how far that benefit extends from jobs to tourism to money just coming in, new operators. It really just goes and goes and goes. The other thing I just want to plug about myself for you guys is I am also a Secretary of the Interior qualified architectural historian, which sounds really fancy. And the only reason I bring it up is because, as you've heard, a lot of times brownfields occur in historic buildings. Well, as a qualified architectural historian, my job before going to law school was to assist companies with obtaining tax credits for rehabbing these historic structures. So as you go through this planning process, that is another area where you can obtain funds and grants and really give back to the community. So that's not the main topic of my presentation today, but if you have questions, please feel free to ask. You'll have my reach out stuff or my contact information at the end of this. So please, I encourage you to reach out. So going back to due diligence, this is a critical part of your entire process. Even before you buy or really get far down the line, you want to do due diligence. So we're going to go over it today. I've given you a lot more information on these slides than I'm probably going to discuss here, but I do understand that you will have the option of obtaining these slides or downloading them, and I encourage you to do so. I've tried to give you information about where you can go find further information, so please don't hesitate to download them. So like I said, we're going to discuss due diligence today. I'm going to go through due diligence and brownfields. I'm also going to speak to the broader use of due diligence. I'm going to go through some of the basic tools that we use for these kind of due diligence and some other considerations. I'm also going to talk how this information that you gain will weave into the brownfields agreement and many of the common pitfalls and considerations that you're going to want to think about when you're starting out this process. So can we have the next slide, please? All right, so what is due diligence? This is one definition, but at the end of the day, it's really just investigating. You're trying to find out as much information as you can about either the property that you're buying or the one you want to rehabilitate, you want to send through the brownfields program. This is where you're going to really solidify the base for all of that action and activity. So I know that due diligence can be extremely scary. My husband and I are actually in the process of selling our house and we're finishing up due diligence. And my gosh, being on that side of it, it is terrifying. But one thing I want to encourage you to remember is that the product of due diligence is data. And that data is neither good nor bad, but it can be used to help you. It is absolutely critical. Okay. So next slide, please. All right, so specifically with due diligence and brownfields. As we've heard, brownfields property, it's one where redevelopment is complicated by actual or potential contamination from hazardous substances. Now, I want to remind you that these are terms of art. So it's not always going to be exactly what you think a contamination might look like. Like we've heard, some of the building materials might be able to pull in a property into the brownfields, even if there's no contamination in the groundwater or the soil. So part of that is figuring out, okay, what is the state of this property and how are we going to prove this, that it is actually complicated by contamination? Part of that role is found in due diligence. That's when you're going to go and figure out, okay, is this actually eligible? Now, I've given you some information here about the North Carolina Brownfields program, and I've also given you some other uses for due diligence that are very important. So some of you might be familiar with CERCLA, also referred to as Superfund. Doing due diligence is critical to establishing certain defenses to CERCLA liability, which can be extremely broad and deep. So also consider this in that context as well. So like I said, the key point from this is due diligence is the gateway to your redevelopment. If you want to do it through Brownfields or one of the other redevelopment programs, you're going to have to do due diligence early and strategically. All right, so next slide, please. All right, like I said, we're going to go into some of the basic tools that we would use. So you've got your phase 1 environmental site assessment and your phase 2, which you have heard about and we'll get into in a minute. These are the basic, just foundational aspects you're going to do. So, and you're going to want to do this before you buy the property or lease the property if possible. So the first one, the phase 1 environmental site assessment, is going to be it's going to be above the ground surface. You're not going to do any subsurface investigation. It's not going to be invasive at all. It's going to be a records review. You're going to have an environmental consultant come out to the property. They're going to walk it. They're going to look to see if then there's any evidence of current contamination. So they'll look for distressed vegetation. They'll look for evidence of spills on the ground. Usually it's a stain. And they'll look to see if they can smell any smells of petroleum or other products that they might see. They're also going to look for drains and how you're handling your chemical storage. All of those can go into suggesting whether there is further issues at this property. And if you're going to do the brownfields, you're actually going to want to see issues at the property. But if you're not doing the brownfields program and you're buying it, you're not going to want to see issues. So what that consultant will generate in your phase 1 report are called RECs, controlled RECs or CRECs, and historical RECs or HRECs. These are recognized environmental conditions. It's, again, a term of art. All 3 of these are. But RECs are the ones you really want to look out for, because if you get a REC, that means you're going to want to move on to the next phase, which is phase 2, to do some more invasive investigation. Now, just a couple critical points about phase 1 timing. Under the rules for establishing defenses to CERCLA, and also just for getting into the brownfields program, you're not going to want what's called a stale phase 1. This means that the phase 1 is over 180 days or 6 months old since the date it was generated or since the site assessment. If you are still within the year of that generation, you can update the report to have it still be viable. But if it's over a year old, you're going to have to bring out a new consultant and do it again. So when you're planning your project, this is something you're going to want to consider timing. It's going to be tight and you're going to want to do it as early as possible. As we'll get into, one of the major pitfalls is not giving enough time to do some of these studies. All right, so next slide, please. All right, so a phase 2 environmental site assessment. Typically, you're only going to do this if you have a REC on your phase 1. Now, if you're trying to get into the brownfields program, you're going to probably end up doing a phase 2, and you might typically do it or you might end up doing it for the entire site. Now, it's very tricky when you get to the phase 2, because then you're pulling in different areas where if you find something, you might have to report it to DEQ. So that is typically where I come in. Oh, no, don't go back. Yeah, thank you. So that's typically where I come in. We'll get into more of that later. But at this point, you're going to want to work with your consultant. You're going to want to work with your lawyer to make sure you're doing this in a very strategic way to protect yourself from undue liability, but also get the data you need to get into the brownfields program. Like I said, phase 2, it's more invasive. You're going to have soil sampling. The consultant might put in some groundwater wells. You'll probably do a soil vapor analysis. Then all those samples will be sent off to a certified lab. They'll be tested, and you'll get a lab report showing whether there are any contaminant concentrations exceeding certain levels, which would indicate contamination, at which point you should be able to show that you have a brownfields. Now, like I said, a phase 2, it's only done if there's a rec. So if you have a phase 1 that doesn't have a rec, you probably don't need to do a phase 2, and you shouldn't, because they're expensive. And again, once you start digging, you don't know what you're going to find. And once you find it, you might have some responsibility on your hands to report or, take further action. Okay, so those are your 2 primary tools. Okay, next slide, please. But there are others, and depending on the nature of your transaction and the history of the area, you might end up doing additional work or looking at some other areas. So I mentioned vapor intrusion. That is definitely one that NCDEQ likes to ask for. They want to make sure that anybody who's going to be in the building is going to be safe to breathe the air, and that any volatile chemicals left in the soil aren't coming through into the building that can hurt them. You're also going to want to look to make sure there's no wetlands or protected species that could impact your development. The wetlands will likely show up on the phase 1, the protected species, not as much, although there are regulatory databases that your consultant will look at. Like I said, CERCLA and liability analysis, that's another area. Depending on the nature of your transaction, you might have a compliance review of the company that was operating there before you. If you are buying stock in that company, then I highly recommend doing a compliance review just to make sure that you're not opening yourself up to any liability. At the same time, if there's a company and you're doing brownfields, you're probably not buying the equity in that company. You're probably going to be buying the assets. And of course, then there's asbestos, like paint, mold, all of these things that technically might not be included in a phase 1, but you're going to want to know just for health and safety reasons as well. Okay, next slide, please. All right, so what do you do with all this due diligence? Now, this is going to come in and play a huge part in the requirements of your agreement and your liability protection, because you're only going to get liability protection under the Brownfields program for those contaminants that exceeded applicable limits in your phase 2. So it's really important that you document and make sure that you're getting coverage for any items or any contaminants that you are worried about. Additionally, you might go to DEQ, you might get all this information, submit your Brownfields application, and then DEQ may want additional sampling. They might want to see more of the property than you sampled for originally. That's one thing that I didn't get into as much, but phase 2s, unlike a phase 1, can be much more targeted onto a specific area or property, only looking for specific contaminants. Typically, in a non-brownfield style transaction, I would recommend tailoring that phase 2 very narrowly. But if you're doing a brownfields property, you might want to consider broadening that a little bit, because the broader you make it, the more coverage you might get. So again, planning and considering the timelines on these, it can be very long. To get an executed agreement, 6 to 18 months, but we've had some changes at DEQ. There's a new head of the Brownfields program. Her name's Tracy. She's very nice. She's very experienced, but we're going to probably see some differences in how it was administered from the past head, which was Bruce Nicholson, who had a very practical approach to it. So that's just something to consider. The other thing is that this due diligence is going to give you your negotiating leverage, both with DEQ, but if you're purchasing the property, it's going to give you negotiating leverage on purchase price, any concessions you're getting from seller. It's very important data. Now, if you're on the sell side, having that due diligence is typically done by the buyer, but there's room too for you to push back or do your own due diligence. It's not really the focus of my presentation today, but you're always welcome to give me a call and we can talk through it and how that might work out. So again, remember how I was talking about stale or outdated phase 1s and phase 2s and needing to focus on timing? That's another thing. If you don't time it correctly, you might have to spend more money to go back out and redo everything. So when you're considering the finances and the timing and the full scale of your timeline, you're going to want to consider, okay, when strategically should I get this done versus when I'm going to submit it to DEQ. So next slide, please. All right. So I mentioned earlier that your due diligence is going to inform your liability coverage and the agreement that you have with DEQ. Oh, I think we have Jordan's here. Jordan is a representative of BRS, of the Brownfields Redevelopment section. And she is one of the great people you will work with if you're part of that and you are negotiating your Brownfields agreement. And one of the things you'll be negotiating are any land use restrictions. So for example, say that you have some groundwater contamination, and that's one of the things that you are either going to remediate or you're going to leave it in place and do a land use restriction, which would prevent groundwater use on the property. So that way you're not drinking contaminated water. TBD whether you can use it for irrigation, but depending on the contaminants, likely not. You might have to put in a vapor barrier or have a soil cap so that certain areas have to be covered with, a foot of soil at all times. There might be construction limitations. There might be use limitations. For example, there can't be a daycare facility on it, or it can't be used for residential uses. Now, you can set these land use restrictions and come back and change them and update them and get them removed, but you'll have to show that that contamination is no longer present and there's not a threat to children or people actually living there. So these kind of land use restrictions should be a consideration strategically, again, if you're looking to flip the property and resell it. Some land use restrictions are going to impede that process. Others not so much. It's really planning out the long-term use and reuse of that property. So you're going to want to focus on that. All right, next slide, please. All right, so here is some timing and sequencing. This is more from a general transaction point of view of purchasing a property, but it kind of gives you the idea of where due diligence fits in this process. And it honestly applies somewhat to brownfields as well. Before you even go under contract, you've got a property that you're like, hey, this would be good. And maybe Centralina has already identified it as a brownfield site. So you're good. You know that it's a brownfield already. It's likely going to qualify. Or maybe it's not one that they've already identified, but you're based on regulatory review. It appears that it likely could be. You can also, honestly, and Jordan might have more to say on this, but DEQ, from what I found, is very helpful if you want to talk through things with them. I always advise my clients, the earlier that you can start coordinating with DEQ, the better. So yeah, I encourage that cooperation with them as well. All right, you might be under contract, you haven't closed yet, you're just doing your due diligence. This is when you're going to do your phase 1. You've got access to the site now, and you're going to do your phase 2 if a wreck shows up. In brownfields, you're at least going to do a phase 1 and likely a phase 2 before you submit your application. But in just a general agreement context and purchase and sale, you're going to do them before closing so that you can continue to negotiate your purchase agreement. So, all right, next slide, please. All right, so some of the common due diligence pitfalls: you're not giving yourself enough time. This is the biggest one I've seen. It is possible to rush a phase 1 and a phase 2. It's very expensive. It's very stressful. It is better to start early and involve your consultant and your attorney, who can often help you find a consultant if you don't have one, to help plan and be strategic about this process. Again, the stale phase 1, longer than 180 days, it needs to be updated. If you have a wreck, don't just go straight to brownfields, do the phase 2, find out for sure what it is. Otherwise, you're risking spending a lot more money to have consultants mobilize, demobilize, remobilize again. You want to plan ahead in order to minimize any extra costs. DEQ files, they are in the process of making this making their digital files much more accessible. Some are already on Access DEQ, some are still on Laserfiche, but there are increasingly more and more really helpful online databases that you can find to tell you about what might be at the property or what's been done in the past. Late council engagement, so many times I get pulled in a week before closing or a week before they want to send in the Brownfields agreement to DEQ, or maybe they already have and now they're running into issues. It's, I understand not wanting to engage an attorney until you absolutely need one, but in the long term, it's better to have us there early, even if we're not doing a ton of work for you, just so we can, weigh in and help with your strategic decisions. All right, next slide, please. Oh, yeah, and Jordan says the DWM site locator tool is a great resource, and I highly recommend it. It is, if it's the one I'm thinking of, it is a GIS-based system where you can search for the property, and then that will link to the records. It is my favorite way to get, it is my favorite way to get into a property's records, and I highly recommend it. Okay, so what are the key takeaways? I cannot say this enough. Due diligence is so important. And the earlier started, the better. And be strategic, plan ahead, give yourself time, and give DEQ time because they are understaffed and working very hard. So please, this is the main takeaways, and I really encourage you to take them to heart. Next slide. I think I'm pretty much done here. Yeah, I just gave you some resources. I'm happy to give you more. DEQ on their website has resources and contact information. I'm speaking for them, but they're happy to talk to you and help you with any questions you have. Environmental attorneys, my information is on the next page, but there is a wonderful environmental bar here in North Carolina. The North Carolina Bar Association has a great environmental energy and natural resources council. Quick plug for that. I'm on it. We just did our annual CLE, which has great information. Encourage you to take a look at that as well. All right, next slide, please. All right, and this is my information. Please do not hesitate to reach out. I love talking about this stuff, so call me up and I will chat your ear off. So without further ado, I know we're going to do questions at the end, but now I'm going to introduce an amazing video, which I really enjoy, and I think you will too. It's by NGIT Tab, one of our hosts here today, and it's about the town of Spencer's experience doing a major brownfields redevelopment. And one of the things that I did not harp on enough, but due diligence is also a great time to start reaching out to stakeholders and getting community support, which is also going to make your process go a whole lot more smoothly. So without further ado, I am going to turn it back over to everyone so you can watch this video. Enjoy.
Spencer, North Carolina, we are a town of about 3,500 residents. We are a working class town. We were founded in the early 1900s. They were mechanics, they were tradesmen, and we're hardworking folks, and we've kind of maintained that same culture for decades.
The site has been there forever. It started out as an industrial site back in the early 1900s, was in operation up into the late 1990s. And as it closed, it went through some gyrations as far as what the future use would be. The property owners demolished the property, took down the old buildings, hauled off all the valuable materials that were there, and left sort of a desolate post-industrial site that nobody could call an attractive site for development. But it was a part of Spencer, and the town of Spencer's leadership at that time, and this was before I got here, started thinking about how that area could be developed and how it could be beneficial to the town of Spencer. My name is Steve Blunt. I'm the town's planner, and my official title is the Zoning and Subdivision Administrator, but I prefer to be thought of as the planner because that's the fun part of the job.
And my name is Peter Franzese. I'm the town manager here in Spencer. I talked about the opportunities for investment at the site and the perfect location, but there were serious logistical infrastructure related challenges with the site. That was the big issue to solve is how do we get the infrastructure in place? And that's where we tried to do our best to involve partners in that discussion.
Still trying to figure that out. Not sure when we're going to.
One of the first things we did was connect with Donald and Ken when I got into office, and our board and our town management, to really make a connection and start to try and work with them on what I consider to be a true public-private partnership, working with them to try and envision ways that we could activate that site, that we could find a developer that would be interested in taking on a site that had some environmental challenges for sure.
This is probably the 10th legacy textile mill that we've worked on. Not only did we build a lot of those facilities when textiles were hot and heavy, 60 years ago, 50 years ago, but we've processed and redeveloped a lot of those historic facilities as well. The infrastructure story is still good. Ken, Donald, the property owner, suggested for us to go meet with the town and see if we could bring those two things together towards a shared goal.
When they finally got Samet to the table, Brian Hall had done this very type of redevelopment numerous times before. They had the experience and they were believable in what they were trying to tell the owners. So the owners turned it over to Samet to solve the brownfield problems, to take the project forward.
When we first met them, they had already done a tremendous amount of conceptual land planning. It was a big benefit that they had already invested in that work, and it helped accelerate our interest, our involvement, but also our pursuit of grant funding.
The question mark sort of became who's going to pay for all this. And that is always a problem for a small town like ours. Come budget time, we're talking about dollars and pennies, not hundreds of thousands of dollars to do studies of this nature. For a small town, we don't have deep enough pockets to spend millions of dollars on anything. We struggle to keep the potholes filled and the sidewalks repaired.
You're not going to get every large grant that you go after. Being able to package together some smaller grants, for example, right, we started with a $75,000 grant to be able to do that small area study. But by having the small area study, it allows us to paint a picture and a vision for what that site could be. And as they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, right? And so we're able to leverage those small grant wins to then be able to start to paint the picture.
We have multiple grants in place on this particular property. The federal government, state governments, local governments have allocated grants, resources, tools for redevelopment of brownfields because they're often in great locations.
Centralina, we had to, they've actually, I think, came to us with the opportunity to be involved in that. We had the site that we were looking at, and they were looking for sites to put into their application. So we told them about the North Carolina finishing site, and they got excited about it and said, yeah, we want you to be one of our first programs. The North Carolina Railroad, they have some new grant programs in place to help solve the brownfield question marks on old textile sites, and also to help redevelop sites that might be rail served. At this point, they've given us 2 different grants that are going towards one solving the brownfield and one solving the infrastructure problems that the site has.
By leveraging those smaller grants to then get additional grants, and the grants that we're getting continue to increase. And the fact that we're now in the Brownfields program is huge for us. I think that was a big milestone for the project. And so we're now picking up that momentum. People are buying into that vision. Funding agencies are buying into that vision.
But it goes back to making sure we're staying in touch with our partners about what we're working on and what we're trying to accomplish. And when, so it's not just us looking for the opportunities, it's our partners as well, who are able to help connect the dots.
You have to have a champion at the particular jurisdiction, city, county, like Steve and Peter are for Spencer and for this project. Without the help of Spencer, this project would not be moving forward.
It's kind of like the train, right? You start, get the wheels turning, and then keep that momentum. If you can develop a good working relationship with all the players that are going to be involved, like we have, that sets the project up for success.
We're working here to be a model small town for all of North Carolina. And what's happening at the finishing company is a huge piece of that. It's going to create the economic base that we need to move us into our next chapter. And that's what's so exciting. So to work with our team each day and moving towards that, it's really what makes you excited to get to work and keep moving towards it.
And we view this as an opportunity to really create a jewel of a gateway for Spencer and for Rowan County. But I look forward to several years down the road when you can come back and take video and do interviews of a completely redeveloped North Carolina Finishing Company site.
Before we jump into our panel discussion and get into some questions as well, Peter and Steve, did you have anything that you wanted to say about that video, your experience with the North Carolina Finishing Company site or anything like that?
Thanks, Elise. I'll jump in, and Steve, you'll likely have some good things to add. What I wanted to say, in case anyone's not familiar with Spencer, where we are in our history, we're in the northern end of our Centralina region, northern Rowan County. We're along the Yadkin River, where kind of the Charlotte region and the Triad region of North Carolina come together. And we were created because we were always in the right place. We were created because Southern Railway, as it was being formed in the late 1800s, needed a midpoint maintenance facility between its terminal ends of the line between DC and Atlanta, and here we are. So we were built as a railroad town in a lot of ways, the same way that other places were built as mill towns. And this finishing company site was originally constructed outside of town limits, about 20 to 30 years after the town of Spencer came to be is when the finishing company site came about along the Yadkin River. And it was a little hard to read, I think, on the video, but the caption was stating, for Cannon Mills, how they were a huge employer. This finishing company site at some point became part of the Cannon and Pilatex family that, now about 20 years ago, overnight became the largest employment loss in North Carolina history. So that was this site, has some history as part of that overall issue that was happening in this part of the state. But that's kind of where it started, and almost immediately there were attempts to deal with how to envision and redevelop the site, and those things did not work out. And the current property owners had the site for a long time, and until all of these pieces that you heard about in the video came together, and a lot of different partners became involved. That's really when the energy and the momentum started uh, that got us to this point where we now can see a clear picture. We still have tons of work to do on this site. And when I say we, I mean us being mainly a cheerleader and the private developers involved, uh, getting in there and making it happen. But it's been exciting over the last 3 or 4 years to see all of this work that we've talked about today about due diligence, see all that starting to take place with the support from Centralina and the EPA and the folks at NJIT Tab have really been fabulous about doing things like we're doing today and helping us tell our stories. So we've appreciated being a part of it and in the little way we have.
And I'll just add to that. I think the mayor pointed it out in his comments that it's important to create that vision up front. The brownfield and the due diligence are pieces of the puzzle, sort of like getting water and sewer and natural gas and power to a site. But if you create that vision of what you think the end product can be, certainly it's going to change over time as you gather more information. But every time you hit a blockage in the road, you can pull that vision back up and say, here's what we're trying to accomplish. Let's not let this little thing stop us from accomplishing this. This has the potential of being a beautiful site for development. For portion of it would be multi-purpose. Another portion would be a large industrial park development. The multi-purpose portion was originally thought it would come late in the process, but Samet has an affiliate company that has come forward already with interest in building 200, 240 high-end apartments on the multi-purpose part of it. Without the vision document in place saying that that was part of what we were looking at, that might not have ever been considered. It would probably just have been looked at as an industrial redevelopment site. So don't forget to get your vision up front, figure out what it is you want to do with the property, do an adequate study that will give you market information, because nothing's going to overcome market forces. You can't wish a hotel onto a site if a hotel's not going to be successful there.
Right.
We have that vision now. We are probably halfway through the brownfield process. We have the developer in place who can actually make this happen physically, and now they're bringing other people to the table to make other pieces of the puzzle happen. So this, a couple of years from now, people will look at it and say, wow, how did that happen? And they'll think it happened overnight. Well, no, it takes years to make this happen. Really the work that Spencer's been involved in started decades ago with saving the Wilcox Bridge, and it's now a pedestrian crossing of the Yadkin River. So every little step along the way is important. Don't let any opportunity get by you. And when you hit those roadblocks, don't let them convince you that's the end of the project. You just need to find some other solution and move around it if you have to.
And when you have that vision, it's easier for you to talk to your stakeholders. And that's something that the video highlighted pretty well. Also, a point made in the video that I think is really important is that local governments don't always have the funds to just spend $1 million on something. So I guess I'm asking everyone here, when should an organization or state consider the brownfield program as an option? At what point? If anyone can answer that.
Yeah, if nobody minds, I'll start off because I wanted to tack on something that Steve was talking about that vision. And I just want to clarify that the due diligence that I was talking about, that's just environmental. That vision and everything, that's part of your broader due diligence that your developer or your community is going to do. Feasibility studies, looking around, funding sources, how we're going to get the capital, who are the strategic partners we're going to have to make. So during that part of the investigation or consideration is when I would recommend that you start considering brownfields program. There are certain tax benefits to doing a brownfields that could be used to raise capital. There are grants I've seen with historic preservation of architecture. There's other grants and there are tax benefits allowed. I've seen communities or entities sell those tax benefits to get liquidity to fund some of their development. So there's many different ways to go about this, but bringing together a team early on, considering all your options for what you want to do will really help. How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to, how am I going to target my due diligence? Remember, I was saying that not all contaminated properties can automatically be used for any use. Some might have restrictions that won't allow residential, that could impact, whether you're putting an apartment complex in, or whether you're going to do single family housing, all considerations that you want to, start very early on in the process.
Yeah, and this is just a comment going back to some things that Steve and Peter said, and then also Grace, what you said about involving people early. You saw at the end of that video all of the special thanks to and all those people who are involved, all the partners and the stakeholders, and the people that, communication is key with, but also starting that early and often. And I think it's important to, Steve mentioned the puzzle pieces, and there's so many different puzzle pieces with brownfield redevelopment projects. And this video is labeled as a success story because every success doesn't look like, a final redevelopment of a project. It's done, they already cut the banner in front of it and everything. There are so many different steps to a brownfield redevelopment project that are worthy of sharing success stories for, and that includes things like communication and involving stakeholders, getting stakeholders, even participating into projects and stuff like that. So I just wanted to highlight the mayor's comment about it being like a train. And once that momentum starts moving forward, people can start to visualize things and people talk about it and they share videos and stories and so on. So I think it's really, really cool. But I'm going to ask a question as well, based on, all the different partners and stakeholders that can be involved in brownfield redevelopment projects. This is for, anyone. What would you say is maybe one key stakeholder, key partner that should be involved from the very beginning of the project, or, as early as you can involve them?
So hard to pick just one.
Right.
Well, selfishly, I would say your attorney is one you're going to want, just because it's going to help things go much more smoothly down the line, and having that insight there really helps. But I think other than NCDEQ, which is critical and you can't get by without them, right, I would say the community is your first stop. You need that support and that buy-in. It's going to make or break the project. And I know that seems like a huge statement, but I've seen it before, and I'm sure we'll see it again. If the community really doesn't want something, you're going to be hard pressed to get it through. And the other thing is they can also help you. They can, come out with history that's really neat. They can come out with, help you decide what they want there. I mean, I've been in community meetings before where it is a working meeting and you're asking them, hey, what do you want at this site? And it's really interesting to hear their ideas, and that kind of buy-in, I mean, it's almost invaluable.
Oh yeah. And on top of that, community members are the ones that are living next to these sites for decades, and they may know so much about the history. I've been to, a town meeting where a community member said, oh, before it was a gas station, it was this. And no one knew that because it wasn't available on maybe, Sanborn maps, aerial photos, other historical resources that maybe weren't identified for that site. And so, yeah, like you said, the community being that incredible resource of knowledge on top of, being able to drive projects, being able to even halt projects. It's really important to have them involved from the beginning for sure.
And I think it's important that somebody become the champion of the project. And it may be an individual or a small group of people that are really interested in seeing something happen on a particular site, and then they keep that vision alive through all the roadblocks you'll run into along the way. It's really easy for a committee to hit a roadblock that they don't see a solution to and then just walk away and the project's over. Find somebody that's not going to believe that roadblocks are permanent. They're just a little bump in the road that you have to figure a way around. And that person may not be able to actually solve any of the problems, They have to reach out to the experts and find the grant funding and find people that can apply for the grants and find people that'll cough up a few $1,000s to pay for somebody to apply for a grant. And it's just that person keeps the project moving forward step by step by step. Institutional knowledge, people that work for governments and organizations of our type come and go. So it's a danger that institutional knowledge goes away if a consultant or even a town board is running a project. But if there's an individual or 2 or 3 people that have really gotten excited about a project, with the comings and goings of staff and elected officials, those people will still be there to carry the project forward.
Absolutely. We do have some more questions, but before I hand it off to Nat, if anyone in the audience has any questions, I know that we had one earlier that we'll get to, but please feel free to put it in chat. We have time for questions and answers with our awesome panel. So yeah, please feel free, but Nat, go ahead.
It's easier to walk away from a brownfield site than walking towards one. How and why should communities approach the brownfield sites that they have? And I guess for Centralina and Spencer, there were probably moments where you felt it was easier to walk away. Why didn't you?
I'm happy to start off with that one. This particular site is, in some ways, you could say it's easy to kind of ignore or walk away because it was on the edge of town, the edge of the county, out of sight, out of mind. But instead of that approach, we saw it as an opportunity for the future to really create something better than was ever there to begin with, and would attract people to want to invest in our community and live in our community and play in our community. So the opportunity just seemed too great to ignore it, even though it's difficult and complicated, and we don't exactly know how long it's going to take. And so being willing to see the positives of that, the outcome is you wind up taking care of, what most people either ignore or don't see or see as a huge eyesore or negative effect on our location here. So, that to me probably translates to a lot of places where you have something that could be really big or it could be really small, but by taking, especially in the case, and we have some of these in the middle of town, some commercial properties that have just been a challenge for a long time. You take them one at a time, and all of a sudden, people start to notice that things look better and feel better, and it becomes contagious. That's where some of the momentum comes from, is when people see other people doing things. And for us, there's been a combination of public investment and private investment, and they that has worked well together to make sure that, and a lot of times the public investment has to come first, but then the private investment will follow.
Yeah, and I would encourage communities and developers and everyone to look at these sites that might be in your town, your community, and it might be an eyesore or some sort of pressure point, pain point for you. I would encourage you to reframe how you think about those as a real opportunity. And whether it's through brownfields or a combination of brownfields, preservation, whatnot, I think they are incredibly valuable. And yeah, just keep an open mind with these, because some of the best things can come from these. I mean, for those of you in and around Charlotte, just think about Optimus Hall. I mean, what a fantastic area. I don't know if that was a brownfields. I would hazard a guess that it could have been, even if it wasn't. But I mean, what an amazing resource. I always take people there whenever I'm in Charlotte with them because it's so cool. It is. Thanks, Jordan. So there are just so many cool opportunities to really make your area, your community stand out and be unique, and bring some business back in.
Yeah, I got lucky enough to see Optimist Hall when I was in Charlotte a couple of years ago for Centralina's Fall Summit, and it was just incredible. Such a cool way to take something that meant so much to a community and put it back in the hands of the community. It's really cool. It's got food hall and, little shops and boutiques in it, event venue. It's really awesome. Take a look at it if you are not familiar with it.
Yeah. And anybody up in Raleigh, we have the Raleigh Ironworks. I don't know, Jordan, if you know if that is a brownfield. But again, like the finishing site in Spencer, I would expect it would have been a brownfields. But it's got businesses, it's got shops, it's got restaurants, it's got residential. I mean, and now it has community event. It's a really cool area.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Regina earlier had a question on can you use the census for help on the data? Regina, if you're referring to getting funding from a grant, the census is really important to tell your story. But if it's I'm not sure if the question is for due diligence specifically, Grace. I don't know if you have an answer for that.
Yeah, totally. So census data can be extremely helpful in that. It's not the first stop, I will say that. Usually a consultant is going to look at city directories, which are exactly what they sound like, historic city directories. It's an easy first stop for looking for previous owners. You do have to go back to, so when you do this kind of due diligence and you're doing a phase one and assessment, there are rules about what needs to be in it and what kind of evaluation you need to do if you want to get that CERCLA defense. And I'm almost sure, and Raleigh Ironworks was a brownfield site as well. So many of them. But one of those standards is you have to go back to at least 1945, if not earlier. So there might not always be census data available, or it might not cover enough of where they were living or who the actual owner of the property was. So a lot of times, instead of looking at that, they're going to look at city directories, fire insurance maps. Those are another great one for looking at the property. They'll tell you, hey, were there any buried storage tanks there? What sort of buildings and occupants were there? They can be extremely helpful. Your consultant will also run some larger reports that'll pull up environmental issues in the area. So a lot of times when you think about due diligence, you're not necessarily going to have to do that kind of census work or records work yourself. Your consultant will do it for you.
Nice job. Okay, I'm going to combine some questions. So this question's about communication. How should a local government communicate with property owners when they're interested in a site? And what are some common pitfalls when you communicate between a city, a consultant, and a developer for a brownfield project?
That is a complex question.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when approaching property owners and you think you want to buy their property, you are going to want to be strategic in how you do it. That's my favorite word today, apparently. You want to be careful how you do it because, maybe they aren't necessarily wanting to sell, or maybe they really, really want to sell and they want to just dedicate it to the city and be done with it because, it's super contaminated and they don't want anything more to do with it and they're trying to get rid of it. Those are great opportunities, but you're going to still want to do your due diligence because you don't want to take ownership of anything that's contaminated until you know how you're going to deal with it, because that opens a huge door. Let's see. Talking between your consultant and your developer and your other stakeholders and DEQ, you can certainly do that via email, but I would encourage you to, another use for your attorney is having them on some of those communications and working with you. You're going to get the benefit of attorney-client privilege, which is useful because you are going to be negotiating agreement. There are some contracts and some deed restrictions and land use. And, part of that is, while you're going to be forthcoming and honest and truthful, you are going to want to still control how you do that and how you present information and talk to people, and be careful. So my recommendation would be to have your attorney help manage those so they can protect that confidentiality and privilege.
It's important to recognize that each of the parties to the project have different motivations. The developer is trying to make money. They're there to develop a project and sell or lease and make money off of it. The town, on the other hand, is looking at a broader picture of how this could improve the quality of life for our community, how it might spur enough economic development to improve our tax base and tax revenues. The original property owner sometimes has some historic connection to the property, and they might have a vision of their family name being carried on with some type of development. So when you're sitting around the table with all the various people that are going to be involved, the consultants, the lawyers, everybody else, recognize that everybody's got a motivation, and none of them are bad motivations. They're all good motivations. They are sometimes in conflict with each other, and it's important to try to find a way to ease those conflicts when you can, but certainly recognize them. Don't ever ignore that and expect a developer to cough up $1 million just because it's going to be good for the community.
And to highlight, I totally agree with Steve. And I just want to clarify, when I say bring in your lawyer, that doesn't mean that we're going to come in and, ready to duke it out on suits or something like that. No, in this scenario, it's very collaborative, and it is just helping the parties to work together. And it sounds like it could be, overkill to have your lawyer there, but it is so helpful to have a clear set of agreement about who's going to do what, when, and what we're going to do if X, Y, Z happens. It really helps the entire relationship and the entire program move forward easily, clearly, and without as many disputes if you have, people there to help collaborate and to help get this down in a way that sets these boundaries and these expectations going forward. So much more collaborative than you might be guessing. So
Jordan has a question. You can unmute if you'd like.
Thank you. Clearly I'm a Teams person. I could not find the raise hand to save my life. So to the initial question of, how to conduct outreach and working with the various parties, Grace brings up great points as far as all these people you can bring to the table. But I just want to underscore the importance of, this is a municipality-led project, having someone at the municipal level present during all those conversations. The attorneys, the environmental consultants, Centralina, if they're funding the grant, are all working with you. But at the end of the day, your municipality, these are your people. You are the one that is going to potentially, be working with the property owner moving forward forever. So the municipality and the property owner have to have that main relationship. Everyone else can be ancillary to that, yes. But, a lot of times we've seen a lot of initial confusion where, most of the communication is run through the environmental consultant. Sometimes, the municipality is not on the email threads, it's not part of the conversations. And so, it seems like they are not as involved or as much of a partner as they really are. So just, whomever else you bring to the table, make sure you're there too.
I like that point. Yes. Okay. This could be answered by, we have a few minutes left. This could be answered by Centralina or Town of Spencer. Have you found that you must balance your community's vision with what environmental constraints actually allow on your site? And if you do have to balance it, how have you done it? If I need to repeat it, I will repeat it.
I think the balancing part we're not quite to that point yet. We've got a vision, we've got a concept drawing that shows buildings of various types on a site. But until we finish with the brownfield assessment, we won't know if that original vision fits the site or not. So we're still waiting on the data from the brownfield study to tell us where certain things can and can't be built. And that's when the balancing part will come in. We'll probably have to give up on some of the things that the town would like to see in certain places, just because of where the pollution happens to fall or what level of pollution we have. The developer, again, is trying to make money off of a site development, and he may have to push some of our dreams one way or another. We're already looking at this site growing into adjacent properties with the idea that the total site that we've drawn a pretty plan on may not be usable. If the total site's not usable, then we'll shift our dream onto adjacent properties and let the project grow as it needs to have an ultimate outcome. So that I think that balancing comes at every step of the process. You find out new information and it tells you you can or can't do something you wanted to do. It may affect what the price of the property is from the property owner to the developer. They're going to have to invest a lot more money in doing this, that, or the other, and that brings the sale price of the property down. Or they might find out the property is not nearly as polluted as they think it is, and therefore the price might go up. Don't see it happening very often, but so I think the balancing comes every step of the way as you get more information. You have to be willing to give up a little bit on what your dream is. Don't get locked into one vision to where that vision stops you from making the better project happen.
And what I would add to what Steve said is in this particular case with the finishing company site, the vision was created with collaboration with the property owners, with community members, with community stakeholders, with market-led research consultants. And, the result of that, I think we don't feel a risk that the vision is totally off the wall. We think the vision was developed in a way that it's going to have community support. It's going to be reasonably flexible to be able to generally go along as we think it would. If Steve and I would have gotten in a room and said, well, what do we think? Well, maybe we should just put the world's most beautiful daycare center up there and let's go do it. Well, that probably wouldn't work out. But we think the way that this was developed and the number of different parties, public and private and community-based involved groups and individuals that were involved in the planning process, we think that it helped protect from that outcome of, oh, we got this idea and we don't think there's a good chance of it working out. So I think that can help.
Nice answers. Okay. So I know Steve mentioned not getting locked into your vision. Regarding due diligence, is there a common deal killer that surfaces during due diligence that could have been avoided in early stage communication? Might be overly specific.
Yeah, it's very specific to the facts of the property and the transaction you're contemplating. You're going into this knowing that the property is pretty contaminated. From a brownfields point of view, though, I think the deal killer on the project developer side would probably be if they're not going to be able to get liability coverage for enough of the contaminants to make it viable for them. They're not going to have that protection that they need for whatever reason. So I think that is the primary area where you might have a deal killer. But otherwise, I think, you could probably work out most things in the end. It's just how much money do you want to spend?
Thank you. Thank you, Grace, Steve, and Peter, for answering my questions, and Jordan for stepping in. Elise, you can go ahead if you'd like.
Awesome. I'm just going to end it really quickly with, if myself or Nat or some of our other team members have not had the pleasure of meeting some of you guys, and you're wondering why New Jersey Institute of Technology is speaking to you guys right now, very valid question. So I can just give a quick run through of who we are and what we do. We are an EPA designated technical assistance to brownfield communities or TAB provider for EPA regions 2 and 4, which includes North Carolina. And we have been a TAB provider for 18 years, since 2008. If you are a state, territory, regional, county, tribal, or local government, some kind of entity along that lines, if you're a nonprofit and you're wanting to learn about, identify, assess, clean up, remediate, redevelop your brownfields, we're here to help with that. And as you can see, it's bold on the bottom, but all of our assistance is free, and that's possible through an EPA grant. So we provide assistance in 3 main ways, and our first main way is our Brownfields Academy. This includes our success stories, like the Town of Spencer's success story on communication and, involving stakeholders. We have successful grant applications up on our website as well, which is really useful for people who are applying for, upcoming EPA brownfield grants and job training grants as well. So we have examples of successful grant applications for your reference on there. We have learning modules, how to make a brownfield inventory, how to put together a grant management team, how-to videos. The learning modules just kind of walk you through those steps. The how-to videos are kind of more explanatory. Previously recorded webinars, and then you can always sign up for our upcoming events and newsletters, whether they're things that are going on in North Carolina specifically, things that we're doing for both regions that will apply to you or can apply to you. So again, this is all of our online resources available at ngit.edu/tab. Now, our second main way is our community engagement educational forums. We travel, we can come to you, we can hold things virtually like this. But there are so many different things that we can offer for your community, and we'll tailor it specifically to what you need. You can let us know where you guys are at, where your community's at, what education or engagement you might appreciate or need. And so this could be a Brownfield Basics workshop. So you saw a little glimpse of that from Nat at the beginning of this presentation, and we can go more in depth on that. It can be something as quick as half an hour to 2 hours. We have grant writing workshops, really handy for, it's never too early to get started on your grants and pulling together that information. We have community workshops on brownfield specific topics. We did one with Centralina last year as well on gas stations and dry cleaners specifically. This one on due diligence and communication. And then we also attend conferences. We can present certain things at those conferences. Now, I want to talk about breaking brownfields. This is a really awesome event. I really enjoyed doing them, and we've held them with the Centralina Regional Council at their fall summits for the past 2 years. And so an entity like a government or nonprofit entity will present a specific brownfield redevelopment challenge to an audience or a panel of experts. So they're saying, hey, we're working on this site. We've done A, B, C, and we're stuck at D. What do we do? And this panel of experts can consist of attorneys, it can consist of funding specialists, consultants, community engagement specialists who then provide feedback. Have you tried this? Have you talked to this person? Maybe you should move forward using this instead of that. So it's not only useful for the entity that's receiving that free advice from those experts, but also for the audience members as well, because they're receiving this feedback and advice that, hey, that may apply to my project as well. And then finally, I've been mentioning Centralina summits that we've co-hosted with them for the past couple of years, but we do summits as well. It can be a full day event, half day event, however long that you're looking for. But I always like to say our main bread and butter is really our one-on-one technical assistance. So we can tailor it specifically to your community's needs. I say we can do a lot of things, but one thing we cannot do is come to your community and tell you what's best for your community. So we're here to help you. We're here to assist with your brownfield redevelopment journeys. There's a bunch of things on this slide that we can assist with, and there's much, much more. So please don't hesitate to reach out. We have our contact information here. I know I went through that very, very quickly, trying to give you guys or end it right on time for you, but Here's Nat's and my contact information. Please do not hesitate to reach out. And again, all of our assistance is free. And I do want to say again, thank you so, so much to Centralina, as well as the town of Spencer, Peter and Steve, and Womblebond Dickinson with Grace Hearn. Really greatly appreciate you guys. And thank you so much to the audience. We hope you enjoyed, and please do not hesitate to reach out to any of these awesome panelists, Centralina, NGIT Tab. We're here to help.
And I just wanted to add to that too. You all can expect to receive a follow-up email after today's session with the presentation, the recording, as well as the link to that fantastic video from the town of Spencer. So yes, please be on the lookout for that. Thank you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Kelly.